Welcome back to Of Soul, where real stories meet real hearts. Today's story is one of grit, humility, and the quiet power of kindness. It's a story about a struggling mechanic whose life takes an unexpected turn the day he meets a young woman with a broken tractor. What he doesn't know, what he can't possibly imagine, is that she's the richest farmer in America. So settle in, breathe deep, and let this story unfold. The morning began like most mornings for Daniel Cross, early, cold, and heavy. Not heavy with rain or fog, but with the weight of bills stacked on his kitchen table. Daniel was 33, soft-spoken, and known around his small rural town as the guy who could fix anything with an engine. As long as he had the parts, but parts cost money, and money was the one thing he never seemed to have. He sipped his lukewarm coffee and stared at the overdue notice from the power company. It wasn't even the only one. His rent was late, his truck insurance was hanging by a thread, and his mother's medical debt, left behind after she passed 2 years ago, still clung to his name like thorns in his skin. He rubbed his eyes, sighed, and stood up. Nothing to do but work. Outside, the sun was barely nudging over the hills, spreading soft gold across the gravel driveway where Daniel kept his tiny repair shop, a shed barely bigger than a single-car garage. He opened the door, expecting the familiar sight of dusty tools and half-finished repairs. Instead, he found something else, a tractor, and not just any tractor. A massive, mud-splattered top-of-the-line model he had only ever seen in magazines he never bought, but sometimes flipped through at the grocery store. Someone had dropped it off in the early morning without waking him. Daniel stepped around it slowly, tracing the machine's powerful contours. Whoever owned this thing had money, a lot of it. Then he heard footsteps. Turning, he saw her, a young woman, maybe mid-20s, walking toward him down the dirt road. She wore faded jeans, worn boots, and a simple flannel shirt. Her hair was tucked messily behind one ear, and her hands were still dusty like she had been working since before dawn. She didn't look like someone who owned a $250,000 tractor. But as she approached, she gave a small, embarrassed smile. "Morning," she said. "I'm sorry for dropping the tractor off without asking. I wasn't sure what time you opened." Daniel nodded. No worries. I'm usually up early." "I'm Nora," she said, wiping her hand on her jeans before offering it. "My tractor broke down last night while I was plowing. Just shut off like it was tired of me." Daniel shook her hand. Her grip was strong. Farmer's hands. "I'll take a look," he said, "but fair warning. Repairs on something this new might take a while, and the parts." He trailed off, not wanting to explain his own financial constraints. Her smile didn't fade. "Whatever it needs, just let me know." She didn't flinch at the cost. That alone made him curious. Daniel got to work. Nora stayed nearby, leaning against a fence post while he examined the tractor's engine. The silence between them wasn't awkward, just peaceful, the kind of quiet that settles naturally between people used to working with their hands. After about 20 minutes under the hood, Daniel exhaled through his teeth. "Well," she asked, "you, pushed this machine pretty hard." Nora shrugged, her eyes soft with something like apology. "Harvest season doesn't wait." "That it doesn't," Daniel agreed, "but the issue isn't where. Looks like your fuel injection system is clogged, probably bad diesel, might have sucked in some impurities." She grimaced. "Is that expensive?" "Usually," he admitted, "but I might have a workaround. If I clean it manually instead of replacing the whole system, it'll take longer, but save a lot of money." Nora tilted her head. "Will that hurt your business?" Daniel blinked. "What? No. Why would it?" "Well," she said softly, "you're choosing the cheaper option for me. Not every mechanic does that." He chuckled quietly. "Ma'am, If someone can fix something without charging an arm and a leg, they should. Her eyes lingered on him for a moment, thoughtful, then she nodded. All right, do whatever you think is best. Daniel worked for hours. He dismantled the fuel rail, soaked the injectors, cleaned each one carefully. Nora stayed the whole time. Sometimes she wandered off to take a phone call. Sometimes she asked questions about the tools he used. Sometimes she simply watched in silence. Around noon, he paused to wipe sweat from his face. She handed him a cold water bottle from a small cooler he hadn't noticed she brought. "Hope you like spring water," she said, "straight from our well." He echoed, "Our farm," she said. "I run it with my grandfather. It's big, bigger than most." "Oh," he nodded. "Makes sense. Big farm, big tractor." She gave a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes. "Yeah, something like that." By early afternoon, Daniel's stomach growled loud enough for Nora to hear. "You eaten yet today?" she asked. Daniel shook his head, embarrassed. "I'll grab something later." She didn't even hesitate, just opened the cooler and pulled out 2 sandwiches. "Hope you like turkey." Yeah, I do." They sat on overturned buckets outside the shop, eating quietly. The breeze carried the scent of fresh soil. Birds hopped around the fence. For a moment, Daniel let himself feel something rare. "Peace, Daniel?" she asked. "Yeah." "Do you like being a mechanic?" The question surprised him. He stared at his half-eaten sandwich, unsure how to answer. "I do," he said finally. "Engines make sense to me. Machines don't lie. They break, you fix them. They don't judge you or ask why you couldn't pay bills last month, or why your mother's gone, or why you're still stuck in the same small town you grew up in." Nora didn't interrupt or pity him. She just listened. He continued, "I guess I wish I could do more with it. Maybe have a real shop one day, something big enough for more than one tractor at a time." Nora nodded slowly. "You ever think about expanding?" He laughed once, a sound with no humor. "With what money?" She didn't push further. When the tractor was finally fixed, the engine roared back to life, smooth and steady. Nora grinned like a kid hearing her favorite song again. Daniel stepped back, wiping grease from his hands. "She's good to go. Shouldn't give you any trouble for a while. Just watch where you get your diesel." Nora approached him. "How much do I owe you?" He hesitated. He should charge the full amount. He needed it desperately. But something about her, maybe her humility, maybe the long hours she spent waiting, made him say the number he knew was too low. She blinked. "Are you sure?" "Yeah," he said. "It's fair." She studied him for a long moment, not questioning the price, questioning him. Finally she nodded and handed him an envelope. This should cover it. He didn't open it until she was gone. Inside wasn't the amount he quoted. It was 10 times that. His heart jumped into his throat. She must have made a mistake. He grabbed his keys and jumped into his battered truck, kicking up dust as he raced down the road toward the direction she drove. He found her a mile away, pulling into a long gravel driveway leading to a farmhouse so large he wondered how he had missed it before. He parked behind her and jogged toward her as she stepped out of the tractor. "You overpaid me," he said, breathless. "By a lot." She turned, hands in her pockets. "No, I paid what your work was worth. That was way too much. You did more than fix my tractor," she said simply. "You saved my harvest. That machine is the backbone of our farm. Still, this is too much. I can't take it." "Daniel," she said gently, "do you know who I am?" He blinked. "You said your name was Nora. Nora Wynn." The name meant nothing to him. She saw the confusion on his face and laughed softly. "My family owns Wynn River Farms." His eyes widened. Everyone in the state knew that name. It was the largest privately owned farming operation in the country. Rumor had it the owner, an older man, was one of the wealthiest farmers in America. "That's your family?" he asked, stunned. "Just me now," she said quietly. "My grandfather passed last year." Daniel felt the world tilt slightly. He looked at her again. The humble clothes, the dirt under her nails, the quiet way she carried herself. Nothing about her screamed wealth. "I didn't mean to deceive you," she said. "I just like being treated like a person, not a walking wallet." He swallowed. "So, you're the richest farmer in America?" She shrugged as if it were unimportant. "That's what some magazine keeps saying." He didn't know what to say. Nora stepped closer. "Daniel, I didn't overpay you. I paid what you deserved, and maybe a little extra." "Why?" She smiled softly. "Because you're honest, hardworking, and because I heard the way you talked about your dreams." He froze. "I've been looking for someone like you," she continued. "Someone who knows machinery, someone who cares more about doing the right thing than doing the profitable thing. I want to build something new on the farm, something your skills would fit perfectly. You want to hire me, not just hire you," she said. "I want to partner with you, a repair division, mobile service, maybe eventually a full mechanic facility on the property for all our equipment. I'll fund it, you run it, half the profit is yours." Daniel stared, speechless. That kind of opportunity wasn't just life-changing. It was impossible, or so he thought. I don't know what to say," he whispered. "Say you'll think about it." Nora replied, "Because I know you're not the type to jump without looking." He nodded slowly. "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." Over the next week, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Nora visited his shop again, not with a broken tractor this time, but with a folder full of plans, real plans. Architectural drafts, budget proposals. She had thought about this long before meeting him. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills and cast orange shadows across the fields, Daniel made his decision. He found Nora sitting on the back porch of her farmhouse, boots up on the railing, sipping sweet tea. She looked at him, hopeful. "Well?" she asked. Daniel took a deep breath. "I'm in." Her face lit up with a smile so genuine, and it warmed him like a fire. "You won't regret it," she said. Over the following months, Daniel's life transformed. Construction began on the new mechanic division, with his input guiding every design. He worked side by side with Nora, discovering not just her intelligence and leadership, but her humility, humor, and heart. They spent long days repairing engines and long nights talking under the stars. Sometimes she told stories of her grandfather. Sometimes he told stories of his mother. The connection between them grew organically, like crops leaning toward sunlight. By the end of the year, the new facility opened, bigger than anything Daniel had ever dreamed of, state-of-the-art tools, enough space for multiple machines, and a team of mechanics he trained personally. And Nora, she stood next to him at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, proud as if the shop were her own. In a way it was, but she always insisted it was his vision. Business flourished. Workers from miles around came for repairs. Daniel's reputation grew, his debts vanished, his confidence returned, and through it all, Nora remained by his side, not as a customer or a partner, but something deeper, though neither rushed to name it. One evening, long after the headlights of the last customer faded down the road, Daniel and Nora stood outside the shop. The stars glittered above them. "You know," Daniel said softly, "if your tractor hadn't broken down that day." She laughed. "It didn't break down." He froze. "What?" She bit her lip, looking slightly guilty. "It didn't break down. I might have tampered with it, just a little." "You what?" She held up her hands. "I didn't know you. I just heard the town gossip. People said you were the best but struggling. I wanted to meet you, see who you really were." He stared at her, stunned into silence, and I liked what I saw. She added softly. Daniel shook his head, laughing in disbelief. "You're unbelievable. Is that bad?" He stepped closer, eyes warm. "No, It's perfect. The night breeze carried their laughter across the fields. Sometimes life doesn't change because you chase opportunity. Sometimes it changes because opportunity disguises itself, like a young woman with dirt on her boots and a tractor that may or may not be broken. And sometimes the richest people in the world aren't the ones with the biggest bank accounts, but the ones willing to lift someone else up. This story isn't about money, it's about grace, kindness, and the surprising ways people enter our lives exactly when we need them most. Thank you for listening to today's story on Of Soul. If it touched your heart, share it and let its message ripple outward. Until next time, take care of your soul and each other.